Hello everyone, kindly hit the subscribe button on your screen and let me know where you're watching from. I still remember the weight of that check in my hands. $10,000, more money than I'd ever held at once in my life. Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, billionaire CEO of Blackwood Industries, watched me with cold gray eyes from behind her massive mahogany desk, manicured nails tapping impatiently against the polished wood. "Consider it a solution to our mutual problem, Zara," she said, her voice crisp as the $100 bills in her wallet. "You disappear, raise your situation quietly, and everyone wins." My hands trembled, not from gratitude but from fury. The situation she referred to was the life growing inside me, her grandchild. The child her precious son James had helped create before deciding corporate ambition mattered more than the woman who cleaned his family's mansion. "This isn't nearly enough," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I wasn't negotiating, I was stating a fact. The Blackwoods were worth billions. $10,000 wasn't generosity, it was an insult. "Excuse me," her perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. "You're a maid, Zara. This is more than generous for someone in your position." I placed the check back on her desk and slid it toward her. 7 months pregnant, back aching from a day of scrubbing floors that cost more than my entire apartment, I somehow found the strength to stand tall. "I don't want your money, Mrs. Blackwood." Her laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Everyone wants money, dear, especially single mothers with no prospects." I rested my hands on my swollen belly and felt a kick beneath my palm, strong and defiant, just like me. "What I want is for my child to know their father. What I want is dignity. Your son knows where to find me when he's ready to be a man instead of a boy hiding behind his mother's checkbook." The look that crossed her face, shock melting into rage, told me everything. Nobody rejected Eleanor Blackwood's money, nobody defied her will, and certainly not the help. "You'll regret this," she said softly. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." I didn't realize then how right she was. I had no idea what forces I'd just set in motion. No idea that in 3 years' time I would pull up to this very mansion in a Ferrari with 2 beautiful children in the back seat. No idea that the empire the Blackwoods had built over generations would be slipping through their fingers into mine. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," I replied, heading for the door. "The question is, do you?" Before I continue, kindly hit the subscribe button on your screen. The day after I rejected Eleanor Blackwood's money, I was fired. "Budget cuts," they said, though they just installed a second swimming pool in the East Wing. I watched as security escorted me from the mansion, my few belongings stuffed into a paper bag. The other staff kept their eyes down. Nobody wanted to be associated with the pregnant black maid who dared to cross the most powerful woman in the city. My tiny apartment felt emptier than usual that night. 7 months pregnant, no job, and rent due in 2 weeks. I sat on my worn couch, hands caressing my belly, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Pride couldn't feed a baby, dignity didn't pay medical bills. My phone buzzed. "James." "I heard what happened with my mother," he said, his voice tight. "I'm sorry." I laughed, though nothing was funny. "Sorry enough to stand up to her, sorry enough to acknowledge your child." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "It's complicated, Zara. The company's going through an acquisition. The board is watching my every move if there's any hint of scandal." "A baby isn't a scandal, James, it's a responsibility." He sighed, and I could picture him running his hands through that wavy brown hair I once loved to touch. "I'll send you money, privately." "I don't want your secret handouts, I want your presence." "I can't give you that, not now." The line went dead, and with it, the last thread of hope I'd been clinging to, that James Blackwood would become the man I thought he was during those stolen nights in the garden house, where he told me his dreams and fears while his fingers traced patterns on my skin. I cried that night, one hand pressed against my mouth to muffle the sounds. I cried for the naive woman who'd believed a billionaire's son could see beyond class and color. I cried for my child who deserved better than this fragmented beginning. But when morning came, something had hardened inside me. A seed of determination had taken root, and I could feel it growing alongside my baby. My phone rang again, unknown number. "Is this Zara Williams?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking." My name is Diana Chen. I'm an attorney with Chen and Associates. I understand you're in a situation with the Blackwood family. My grip tightened on the phone. How did you? The Blackwoods have many enemies, Ms. Williams, and I specialize in cases against powerful people who believe they're above consequences. She paused. I'd like to meet with you, no charge, just a conversation. 2 days later, I sat across from Diana in her office downtown. She was nothing like I expected, not the shark-like lawyer I'd imagined, but a woman with kind eyes behind stylish glasses and a smile that put me instantly at ease. Here's what you should know about Eleanor Blackwood, Diana said, sliding a folder across her desk. 10 years ago, she pushed out her co-founder, a brilliant engineer named Robert Hayes. He developed the core technology that made Blackwood Industries a billion-dollar company, but she maneuvered him out before their IPO. He got pennies, she got billions. I flipped through the pages, confused. Why are you telling me this? Because Robert Hayes was my client, and before he died last year, he left something in my possession, something that could shake the Blackwood empire to its foundations. Diana leaned forward. But I need someone on the inside, someone they'd never suspect. I closed the folder. I'm not a spy, I'm just trying to have my baby in peace. And how's that working out for you? She gestured to my still empty wallet. Eleanor won't stop at firing you. People who cross her tend to find themselves blacklisted across the industry. No references, no job prospects. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my friend Letitia, who worked at the Henderson household across town. Mrs. H just got a call from Eleanor Blackwood. She's telling everyone not to hire you. I'm so sorry, Z. The blood drained from my face. See, Diana said softly, she's methodical, she's making sure you'll come crawling back for that check. I met her eyes. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership? I have information that could topple Blackwood Industries, but I need evidence only someone close to the family could obtain. Help me, and I'll make sure you and your child are set for life. She slid another document toward me. Plus, I'll get you a job that will put you back in proximity to the Blackwoods, but not as a maid. The document was an employment contract for Horizon Tech, Blackwood Industries' biggest competitor. They're hosting a charity gala next month. The Blackwoods will be there. So will you, but not as staff, as a junior investment analyst for Horizon. Diana's smile turned sharp. You have a degree in finance that you never got to use, isn't that right? The one you earned at night school while working 3 jobs. My heart pounded. How do you know about that? I do my research, Ms. Williams. The question is, how badly do you want justice? How badly do you want to secure your child's future? I thought about Eleanor's cold eyes, about James's cowardice, about the baby inside me who deserved a world where people couldn't be discarded like inconvenient trash. What if I get caught? I whispered. Diana's eyes gleamed. Then I guess you'd better not get caught. That night, as I lay in bed watching headlights trace patterns on my ceiling, I felt my baby kick, once, twice, 3 times, like a code tapped against my ribs. A message from a life not yet born but already fighting. Okay, little one, I whispered, placing my hand on my belly. Let's show them who they're dealing with. I didn't know then that my decision that night would change everything. That in 3 years' time I would not only have justice, but power beyond anything Eleanor Blackwood could imagine. I didn't know that the path ahead would nearly destroy me before it saved me. And I certainly didn't know that instead of one baby, I was carrying 2 twins who would become both my greatest vulnerability and my greatest strength in the war I was about to wage against the Blackwood dynasty. The doctor's face on the ultrasound day is something I'll never forget. Ms. Williams, she said, moving the wand across my belly, there's something I need to show you. My heart stopped. After everything, the firing, Diana's proposition, the sleepless nights, had something gone wrong with my baby. See this, she pointed to the grainy screen, and this, she moved the wand slightly. I squinted, confused. What am I looking at? Her face broke into a smile. 2 heartbeats, congratulations, you're having twins. The world tilted beneath me. Twins. Double the joy, double the responsibility, double the terror when you're facing it alone. I laughed until I cried, then cried until I laughed again, my hand pressed against my mouth. Do you want to know their sexes? She asked gently. I nodded, unable to speak. A boy and a girl, they're developing perfectly. That night I called Diana. "I'm in," I said, "but I have conditions." 8 weeks later, I stood in the glittering ballroom of the Grand Hyatt, unrecognizable from the woman who once scrubbed the Blackwood's floors. Diana's connections had transformed me from unemployed maid to rising analyst at Horizon Tech in a dizzying blur of training sessions, designer maternity wear, and a crash course in corporate espionage. "Remember," Diana's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece I wore. "Your name tonight is Zara Wilson. You graduated from State University with honors in finance. You've been with Horizon for 3 years, mostly in their London office. You're back stateside to help with the Richardson merger." I sipped sparkling water, scanning the room for familiar faces. My new identity came with forged credentials so convincing that even I sometimes forgot they weren't real. "The Blackwoods just arrived," Diana said. "Billionaire is by the east entrance. James is heading to the bar." My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't seen James since that night in the garden house when he'd promised me the world in whispers, not knowing I'd already given him 2 new lives in return. I turned, and there he was, still devastatingly handsome in his tailored tuxedo, his brown hair slightly longer than the last time I'd seen him. He was laughing with the bartender, utterly at ease in a world where everyone knew his name. "Go now," Diana instructed, "just like we practiced." I moved through the crowd, each step deliberate. My midnight blue gown, custom made to elegantly accommodate my 8-month belly, drew appreciative glances. The diamond earrings Diana had insisted I wear caught the light with every turn of my head. I positioned myself at the bar just close enough. Then, as choreographed, I dropped my clutch. The small sound caught James's attention. He turned, ever the gentleman, and bent to retrieve it before I could attempt to reach past my pregnant belly. "Here you are, miss," he said, then froze as our eyes met. Recognition dawned slowly, confusion bleeding into shock. "Zara." I smiled, taking the clutch from his motionless hand. "Hello, James." His eyes dropped to my belly, now impossible to ignore. We're still pregnant?" "Yes, more pregnant than we thought, actually, it's twins." I kept my voice light, casual, as though we were discussing the weather rather than the 2 lives he'd helped create then abandoned. He swallowed hard. "Twins," his voice cracked on the word. "A boy and a girl's." His hand trembled as he reached for his drink. "What are you doing here, Zara? How did you—" "Ms. Wilson?" a voice interrupted. I turned to see Calvin Reed, the CEO of Horizon Tech, approaching with a warm smile. "I've been looking for you. The Andersons are eager to discuss your analysis of their portfolio." James's eyes widened further. "Wilson." I extended my hand to Calvin, the diamonds on my wrist catching the light. "I'll be right there, sir, just catching up with an old acquaintance." Calvin nodded, his gaze flicking between us curiously before moving away. "You work for Horizon now," James whispered, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "As what?" "Investment analyst," I replied. "Turns out my finance degree is finally being put to good use." "You have a finance degree?" The genuine shock in his voice pierced me. We had shared a bed for months, whispered secrets in the dark, and yet he had never bothered to learn the most basic facts about the woman cleaning his family's home. "There's a lot you don't know about me, James." I placed a protective hand on my belly as one of the twins kicked. "But then there's a lot you chose not to know." From across the room, I felt Billionaire Blackwood's eyes on us. I didn't need to look to know she was watching, her face a perfect mask of social pleasantry while rage boiled beneath. "Zara, we need to talk," James said urgently. "Somewhere private. This changes things." "Does it?" I asked coolly. "Or did you just realize I'm not as easy to dismiss as you thought?" Before he could answer, my phone buzzed, the signal from Diana. "Excuse me," I said. "Duty calls." "It was illuminating to see you again, James." I walked away, feeling his eyes boring into my back. In my ear, Diana's voice was triumphant. "Perfect. Billionaire looks ready to explode. Phase 1 complete." Phase 2 began in the ladies' room, where I'd been instructed to go after my encounter with James. As predicted, the door swung open minutes after I entered, and Billionaire Blackwood's reflection appeared in the mirror beside mine as I reapplied my lipstick. "What kind of game are you playing?" Her voice was tight with controlled fury. I capped my lipstick, turning to face her directly. No game, Mrs. Blackwood, just living my life. Her eyes narrowed, taking in my transformed appearance. Horizon Tech, really? Did you think I wouldn't see through this pathetic attempt at, what, revenge, extortion? Neither, I replied calmly, career advancement. She laughed, the sound brittle as breaking glass. You expect me to believe you went from scrubbing toilets to investment analysis in 3 months? Who's pulling your strings, Zara? Who put you up to this? I smiled, the smile Diana had taught me, confident, knowing, with just a hint of mystery. You assume I couldn't have done this on my own. That's always been your blind spot, Billionaire, underestimating people. Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. Listen carefully. Whatever you're planning, whoever you're working with, stop now. You have no idea what I'm capable of when protecting my family and my company. I looked pointedly at her hand until she released me. Actually, I think I'm beginning to understand exactly what you're capable of. The question is, do you know what I'm capable of? The bathroom door opened and 2 laughing socialites entered. Billionaire stepped back, her perfect mask slipping back into place. This isn't over, she whispered before sweeping past me. It's only just beginning, I murmured as the door closed behind her. Later that night, as Diana helped me out of the gown in her downtown apartment that had become my safe house, she was practically giddy with excitement. You were magnificent, she said. The look on Alina's face when she saw you with James, priceless, and we got everything we needed from their systems. While I'd been distracting the Blackwoods, Diana's tech specialist had used the credentials I'd obtained to access the Blackwood Industries servers. What they found had exceeded even Diana's expectations. Evidence of tax fraud, bribery of foreign officials, patent theft, including Robert's original designs, Diana said, spreading documents across her coffee table. Plus emails proving Alina knew about the defects in their medical devices but suppressed the reports. They've been selling faulty heart valves, Zara. People have died. I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted, my twins shifting restlessly inside me as if sensing my distress. What happens now? Diana's expression softened. Now you rest, those bobbies could come any day, I'll handle the next steps. But the next steps came sooner than anyone expected. At 3:17 a.m. I woke to wetness between my legs and pain wrapping around my abdomen like a vice. Diana, I gasped into the phone, it's time. 22 hours of labor later, I held my son and daughter in my arms, their perfect faces looking up at me with unfocused eyes. Alexander and Amara, my little fighters, born 5 weeks early but strong and healthy. As I gazed at them, exhausted and overwhelmed with love, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of James and Alina leaving Blackwood Tower surrounded by reporters. The headline beneath, Blackwood Industries under federal investigation for fraud, corruption. Another buzz, Phase 3 begins now, rest and recover, you'll need your strength for what comes next. I looked down at my twins, their tiny hands curled into fists, unaware that they had been born into a battlefield. Unaware that their mother had just helped launch a war that would reshape their future in ways I was only beginning to understand. We're going to be okay, I whispered to them, making a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. Didn't know that within months the Blackwood Empire would be crumbling from within. Didn't know that James would show up at my door, broken and desperate, with secrets that would change everything I thought I knew. And I certainly didn't know that when the dust settled, the victory I thought I wanted would taste nothing like I'd imagined. The first year of motherhood passed in a blur of sleepless nights, first smiles, and legal depositions. While I learned to change diapers with one hand and feed 2 bobbies simultaneously, Diana orchestrated the systematic dismantling of Blackwood Industries. Federal investigators swarmed their headquarters, stock prices plummeted, and the board of directors began calling for Alina's resignation. I watched it all unfold from the sidelines, too exhausted from caring for Alexander and Amara to feel the triumph I'd once anticipated. The twins consumed my world, Alex with his thoughtful eyes that studied everything, Amara with her fierce determination evident even as she learned to crawl. Diana visited often, bringing gifts for the bobbies and updates on the case. She'd secured me a comfortable apartment in a dormant building, a monthly stipend and round-the-clock security. "The Blackwoods still don't know where you are," she assured me one evening as we watched the twins play on a blanket. "But we can't be too careful. Billionaire has lost control of her company, but she still has resources." "What about James?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Despite everything, I couldn't help wondering about the father of my children, the man whose features I saw reflected in Alex's smile and Amara's expressions. Diana's face tightened. "He's cooperating with authorities against his mother, claims he was kept in the dark about the worst of it. He's trying to salvage what he can." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Part of me still ached for the James I thought I knew, the man who'd talked about changing his family's company for the better, who'd dreamed of using their wealth to make real differences in the world. Had that all been lies, or had he simply been too weak to stand up to his mother? "Have you told him?" Diana asked softly, watching Alex grab his sister's toy, prompting indignant wails. "About the twins, he knows they exist. He saw me at the gala." "No," Diana said, "about their condition." My hands froze in the act of separating my squabbling bobbies. Both Alex and Amara had been born with a rare heart condition, not life-threatening with proper care but requiring careful monitoring and eventually, surgery. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. My children needed the very medical devices that Blackwood Industries had corrupted for profit. "No," I whispered, "he doesn't deserve to know." But fate has its own way of unraveling even the most carefully constructed plans. 3 days later, as I pushed the twins' stroller through the park enjoying the spring sunshine, a familiar figure stepped into our path. James looked terrible, designer clothes hanging loosely on his frame, dark circles shadowing his eyes, his once confident posture now slumped with defeat. But when his gaze fell on the twins, something ignited in his expression. "Are these," his voice broke, "are these my children?" Alex and Amara stared up at him curiously. At 14 months old, they were alert and observant, taking in the stranger with their matching hazel eyes, his eyes. "How did you find us?" I demanded, instinctively placing myself between him and the stroller. "I hired investigators," he admitted. "It took months. You disappeared so completely after the gala." His eyes never left the twins. "A boy and a girl, just like you said." "You shouldn't be here, James, your mother." "I haven't spoken to my mother in 6 months, he interrupted, "not since I testified against her." That stopped me cold. "You testified against Billionaire." He nodded, pain flashing across his face. "She knew those heart valves were defective. People died, Zara, 37 people, and she covered it up." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I couldn't be part of that no matter what it cost me." "And what did it cost you?" I asked, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Your trust fund, your corner office." "Everything," he said simply. "The board forced me out after my testimony. My mother's loyalists in the company made sure I was as ruined as she was. My accounts are frozen pending investigation. I had to sell my condo, my cars." He laughed hollowly. "I'm staying in a studio apartment in Brooklyn." I should have felt vindicated. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? To see the mighty Blackwoods fall. But looking at James, genuinely broken, yet standing here not asking for money or sympathy, only a chance to see his children, I felt the first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. "What do you want, James?" "A chance," he said, his eyes pleading. "Just a chance to know them, to be their father." He swallowed hard. "I know I don't deserve it. I know I failed you, failed them when you needed me most, but I want to try to make it right." Before I could answer, Amara began fussing, her face flushing with the exertion that always worried me. I immediately knelt to check her, taking her small wrist to feel her pulse the way the doctors had taught me. James's brow furrowed with concern. "What's wrong with her?" The question hung in the air between us. This was the moment. I could shut him out forever or let him into the complicated reality of our children's lives. "They both have a congenital heart condition," I said finally. "Ironically, the same condition that the faulty Blackwood valves were meant to treat in adults." The color drained from his face. "Oh my God," he whispered, will they be okay?" "With proper treatment, yes. They'll both need surgery eventually, but for now, we manage with medication and monitoring." He took a step back, looking like I'd physically struck him. "I did this, my family did this." It's not genetic if that's what you're thinking, I said, just a cruel coincidence. James knelt down to eye level with the stroller, keeping a respectful distance but gazing at his children with such naked longing that it made my chest ache. What are their names? He asked softly. Alexander and Amara. Beautiful names, his voice was thick with emotion. Hello, Alexander, hello, Amara, he glanced up at me uncertainly. Their father, I finished for him. Whatever else has happened between us, that much is true. Something like hope flickered across his face. What I didn't tell him was that Diana had been pushing me to file a lawsuit against Blackwood Industries specifically for the twins' medical care. A lawsuit that would drain what remained of the company's assets and not coincidentally channel them into a trust that Diana would control. They need the best medical care available, Diana had argued just yesterday. Care that the Blackwoods' money should pay for, it's justice, Zara. But looking at James now, broken yet somehow finding the courage to face me, to face his responsibility, I wondered what justice really meant, and whose interests Diana truly had at heart. My phone buzzed. Diana, where are you? You're late for our meeting with the lawyers. I tucked the phone away without responding. I have a proposition for you, James, I said slowly, an idea forming. But first, I need you to tell me everything you know about Diana Chen. His eyebrows rose in surprise. Diana Chen, the lawyer who's been leading the charge against my mother? When I nodded, he continued cautiously. She was Robert Hayes' attorney before he died. They were close, more than just lawyer and client from what I heard. Some said they were lovers. And Robert Hayes was my mother's co-founder, the engineering genius behind our core technology. His expression darkened. The man my mother betrayed and pushed out before the company went public. Pieces were falling into place, creating a picture I didn't want to see. And Diana's crusade against your family, it started after Hayes died. James nodded. Almost immediately, she seemed to appear out of nowhere with evidence we thought was buried. His eyes widened with sudden understanding. She came to you, didn't she? She's been using you. Just like I've been using her, I countered, but the certainty in my voice wavered. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. Zara, whatever Diana's offered you, be careful. My mother is manipulative and ruthless, but Diana Chen has a personal vendetta. And people with vendettas don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. I looked down at my twins, peacefully oblivious to the war being waged around them. Alexander reached up, grabbing a lock of my hair and giggling when I pretended to bite his fingers. Amara watched her brother with an expression of amused tolerance that never failed to amaze me in one so young. I need to get them home, I said finally. It's almost time for their medication. Please, James said quietly, let me be part of their lives, I'll do anything. I studied him, this fallen prince who'd lost everything, standing before me without pretense or power. The man I'd once loved before ambition and cowardice tore us apart. Meet me tomorrow, I said, same time, same place, and James, come alone, tell no one. His face lit with gratitude, I promise. As I watched him walk away, my phone buzzed again. Diana, more insistent this time. Zara, where are you? The SEC investigators need your statement today. Everything we've worked for is at stake. I stared at the message, the weight of decisions pressing down on me. Diana had given me resources, protection, a path to justice. But as I looked at my beautiful children, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had traded one manipulation for another. That in my quest to bring down the Blackwoods, I'd entangled my bobbies in a revenge plot that was never truly mine. We're going to make this right, I whispered to the twins as we headed home. All of it. I didn't know then that my decision to meet James again would set in motion events that would change everything. That within 24 hours, Diana's true motives would be exposed in a way that would leave me reeling. That I would discover documents revealing a truth so shocking it would force me to choose between vengeance and redemption. And I certainly had no idea that exactly 2 years later I would drive a gleaming red Ferrari through the gates of the Blackwood estate, my twins secured safely in the back, coming not as a supplicant or an enemy, but as its rightful heir. The morning I was supposed to meet James, I woke to frantic pounding on my door. Heart racing, I checked the security camera Diana had installed and saw James himself, disheveled and frantic. Zara, please, you have to let me in, they're coming for you. I threw open the door, clutching my robe closed. What are you talking about? Who's coming? He rushed past me, heading straight for the twins' room. Is there a back exit? We need to get the children out now. James, stop! I grabbed his arm. You're scaring me, tell me what's happening. His eyes were wild with panic. Diana Chen, she's not who you think she is. He thrust his phone at me. Look. The screen showed an email chain, Diana corresponding with someone named Vivian Hayes. Robert Hayes' widow, James explained breathlessly. They've been planning this for years, Zara, long before you were ever in the picture. I skimmed the messages, my blood turning to ice. The maid is perfect, pregnant by the son, rejected by the mother. We couldn't have scripted it better. Once we have control of the Blackwood assets through the Children's Trust, we'll transfer everything offshore before anyone realizes what's happening. The girl doesn't need to know. Her role ends when the children secure their inheritance. How did you get these? I whispered. I hired a security specialist to look into Diana after we spoke yesterday. He hacked her private server. James ran his hands through his hair. Diana and Vivian aren't just after justice or revenge, they're after the entire Blackwood fortune, and they're using our children to get it. Our children, the words hung between us as I tried to process what he was saying. The trust Diana set up for the twins' medical care, I said slowly. She's been pushing me to file a claim for majority ownership of Blackwood Industries as the twins' mother. Because minors with a legitimate claim to the company would be assigned a legal guardian to manage their assets, James finished. And she's positioned herself to be that guardian. My legs gave out and I sank onto the couch. I trusted her. We need to go, James said urgently. My mother called me an hour ago. Diana's filed emergency custody papers claiming you're an unfit mother. She has a judge in her pocket ready to sign the order. That's impossible. On what grounds? Apparently you've been emotionally unstable, using the children as pawns in an extortion scheme against a prominent family. His voice was bitter. She has fabricated evidence, Zara, text messages, emails, recordings that make you sound unhinged. Your mother warned her about this. Why would Billionaire help us? James looked away. Because I told her everything about the twins' health condition, about Diana's manipulation, and because, he hesitated, because she's dying. I stared at him. What? Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, she has months, maybe weeks. His voice cracked. She wants to make amends, Zara, in her own way. Before I could process this bombshell, my phone rang. Diana's ringtone. I put it on speaker. Where are you? Her voice was sharp with impatience. The judge is waiting. We need to file those papers today. I'm not feeling well, I lied. The twins were up all night. Can we postpone until tomorrow? A pause. That's not possible. I'll send my assistant to pick you up. Be ready in 30 minutes. She hung up without waiting for my response. She's coming here, I said, panic rising in my throat. I rushed to the twins' room where they still slept peacefully, unaware that they had become the center of a battle between powerful forces. We need evidence, James said, following me. Something concrete to use against Diana. Without it, it's her word against ours, and she has resources, connections. I froze, a memory surfacing. The safe deposit box. What safe deposit box? Diana gave me one for emergency documents, the twins' medical records, my new identity paperwork, but she's always kept the second key. I turned to face him. What if there's something in there she doesn't want found? Something she needed to keep close but not in her possession? James's eyes lit with understanding. Where? First National downtown branch, but we'd need both keys to access it, mine and hers. A slow smile spread across his face. As it happens, my security specialist is quite talented with locks. His expression sobered. But we need to move the twins somewhere safe first, somewhere Diana wouldn't look. Which is how, 1 hour later, I found myself hurrying through the service entrance of the last place anyone would expect to find me, the Blackwood mansion. Billionaire's private nurse met us, her face professionally blank as she helped carry the twins' diaper bag and medication. Mrs. Blackwood is waiting in the East Wing, she said. No staff will disturb you there. Billionaire Blackwood sat in a sunlit room, wrapped in a cashmere throw despite the warm spring day. Cancer had hollowed her cheeks and dimmed her once piercing eyes, but the regal posture remained. She watched silently as I settled the twins on a play blanket near her chair. Thank you, I said stiffly, for helping us. She studied the children with an unreadable expression. They have his eyes. In your chin, I replied, surprising myself. The ghost of a smile touched her lips. Yes, I suppose they do, she looked up at me. You were right to reject my money that day, it was an insult. It wasn't about the amount, I said quietly, it was about respect. She nodded slowly, a lesson I learned too late in life. Her gaze returned to the twins. Go, do what you need to do, they'll be safe with me. I hesitated, every instinct screaming against leaving my bobbies with this woman who had once tried to erase their existence. But looking into her eyes, I saw something I never expected to find: regret. Their medication is in this bag, I said. Amara's is the pink bottle, Alex's is blue, 1 teaspoon every 4 hours. I understand. She reached out a thin hand toward Alexander, who regarded her curiously. We'll get acquainted while you're gone. James squeezed my shoulder. We need to hurry. The next 3 hours passed in a blur, James's security specialist meeting us with equipment to duplicate Diana's key based on mine, the tense minutes in the bank vault as we opened the safe deposit box, the moment we discovered its contents. Letters, dozens of them, from Robert Hayes to Eleanor Blackwood, spanning decades. Love letters. Eleanor had been having an affair with her co-founder for years, even while married to James's father. But more shocking were the DNA test results tucked among them, dated 29 years ago. Oh my God, James whispered, reading the report. Hayes was my father, my biological father. Which means, I began. Which means the entire premise of Diana's vendetta is based on a lie, he finished. Hayes wasn't just pushed out of a company he helped build, he was pushed out of his son's life, my life. There was more: offshore account numbers, property deeds, and most damning of all, a contract between Diana Chen and Vivian Hayes outlining their plan to seize control of Blackwood Industries through James's children, my children, and liquidate its assets. This is why she approached me, I said, feeling sick. Not to help me get justice, but to use my bobbies as pawns in her revenge scheme. We've got her, James said grimly, gathering the documents. But we need to move quickly. She'll realize something's wrong when you don't show up at the courthouse. We raced back to the mansion, only to find Diana's car already in the driveway. My heart dropped to my stomach as we rushed inside. The scene that greeted us in the East Wing stopped us cold. Diana stood facing Eleanor, who sat calmly in her chair. Between them, playing contentedly on the floor, were my twins. How nice of you to join us, Diana said coldly. I was just explaining to Mrs. Blackwood how disappointed I am that you've chosen to violate our agreement. By agreement, you mean your plan to use my children to steal the Blackwood fortune? I stepped forward, placing myself between Diana and the twins. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. I see James has been filling your head with lies. No more lies, Diana, James said, holding up the safe deposit box documents. We know everything about your deal with Vivian Hayes, about your plans for the trust fund, all of it. Color drained from Diana's face. Where did you get those? From the safe deposit box you so thoughtfully provided, I replied. The one you thought I'd never access without you. Diana's eyes darted to the door, calculating her escape. The police are on their way, Eleanor said calmly. Along with my attorneys, fraud, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, the charges should keep you occupied for quite some time, Ms. Chen. You're dying, Diana spat at Eleanor. Everyone knows it. Do you think your precious company will survive without you? That your son can run it? He's weak, just like his father. Which father would that be? James asked quietly. Harold Blackwood or Robert Hayes? Diana's shock was answer enough. You didn't know, I realized. For all your planning, all your schemes, you never knew that James was Hayes' biological son. That's impossible, Diana whispered. The DNA test results are in the box, Eleanor said, her voice steady despite her frail appearance. Along with letters spanning 20 years, Robert knew James was his son. He chose to keep that secret to protect his marriage to Vivian. He wouldn't have kept that from me, Diana insisted. We were lovers, yes, I know. Eleanor's smile was sad. Robert had many lovers, Diana. You weren't special, just useful. The police arrived moments later, leading a stunned Diana away. As the mansion quieted again, I gathered my twins close, overwhelmed by how close I'd come to losing them. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Eleanor and James exchanged a look. "That depends on you," Eleanor said, "on what you want for yourself and your children." 2 years later, I drove through the gates of the Blackwood estate in a gleaming red Ferrari, a gift from James on the twins' second birthday. In the back seat, Alexander and Amara babbled happily, pointing at the flowering gardens as we wound up the driveway. Eleanor had died 6 months after that fateful day, but not before setting things right. She'd restructured Blackwood Industries, creating a charitable foundation dedicated to providing free heart surgeries for children with conditions like my twins. She'd named James CEO with me as co-chair of the foundation's board. The mansion, once a symbol of everything unattainable to me, was now my children's home, their birthright as Blackwoods. Though I maintained my own apartment in the city, we spent weekends here building new memories to replace the bitter ones. James waited on the front steps as I parked, his face lighting up at the sight of his children. We weren't together romantically, too much had happened between us, but we'd forged something perhaps more important, a partnership built on respect, forgiveness, and love for our children. "Daddy," the twins squealed as I helped them from their car seats. He scooped them up, one in each arm, peppering their faces with kisses until they dissolved into giggles. "How was their checkup?" he asked, his eyes meeting mine over Amara's curly head. "Perfect," I said, my heart full. "The doctor says they won't need surgery for years, maybe never if the new treatment protocol works." "And you?" he asked softly, "how are you?" I looked up at the mansion that had once seen me on my hands and knees scrubbing floors, now welcoming me through its front door. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the pain, the betrayal, the unexpected redemption. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I replied. As we walked inside together, I remembered that day 3 years ago when I'd placed Eleanor's check back on her desk. I'd had no money, no power, no plan, just a fierce determination that my children deserved better than what the world seemed prepared to give them. Sometimes, standing up for your worth means walking away from what's offered because you know you deserve more. Sometimes it means rejecting $10,000 only to find yourself, years later, driving a Ferrari worth 20 times that amount. But the real value wasn't in the car or the mansion or even the company shares now held in trust for my children. It was in the knowledge that they would grow up knowing their worth could never be measured in dollars, only in dignity, courage, and love. And that was a lesson worth more than any fortune. Thank you for joining Zara on her incredible journey from maid to matriarch. I hope the story touched your heart and reminded you that sometimes our greatest power lies in knowing our own worth. If you enjoyed this emotional roller coaster, please subscribe for more stories that will move, inspire, and entertain you. Your comments mean the world to me. What was your favorite part? Did the ending surprise you? Did you shed a tear? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.